Imagine a company so vast that its market cap dwarfs Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon, combined with room to spare. At $7.9 trillion, this 400-year-old ghost invented the very world we now inhabit today. While others talk of Rothschilds, the true blueprint was Dutch. Comment legacy if you respect the power of silent capital. The soul of the Dutch East India Company was never about simple merchant trade but the radical reframing. While 16th-century empires fought for land with guns, the Dutch built a revolutionary new weapon called private capital. They realized that a market could scale far beyond any feudal tax system or any traditional land-based monarchy. This strategic philosophy centered on the manufacture of wealth. They moved away from assets tied to physical titles. Instead, they generated prosperity through the flow of shares. By allowing ordinary citizens to fund imperial expansion cycles, they created a machine that could scale without limits. The market became the true sovereign force for their survival. The House of Orange understood this shift better than anyone. They possessed no silver mines, yet they adapted by bankrolling. They tied their future to dividends rather than inherited gold. This established a model where capital became the silent ruler. The nobility no longer mattered in an order run by dividend-backed power replaced the traditional crown for the family. This reframed the entire concept of the state into a hybrid entity that functioned as both a corporation and sovereign. The VOC was not merely a business, but a machine. It was designed to dismantle the old feudal order forever. It raised private armies and governed colonies using a mandate. This fueled a massive commercial ambition across the deep oceans. The core belief was that risk could be made predictable. The invention of permanent shares changed the world of finance. By creating the first secondary market in Amsterdam, they ensured ownership could be transferred freely between any interested global parties. This innovation allowed the company to maintain a foundation of stability while operating in the most dangerous regions of Earth. Ultimately, the strategic philosophy proved that capital was more potent than any traditional crown ever forged by a king before. They engineered a system where war, trade, and finance moved together in a perfect and terrifying harmony across the seas. This blueprint for modern capitalism emerged from a tiny republic. They had the audacity to govern the world through markets. The financial engine of this global behemoth was fueled by the world's first initial public offering in 1602. Capital flooded into Amsterdam as ordinary people sought spice profits. This massive infusion of public money allowed the VOC expansion. It operated with a scale and speed that was unprecedented. The VOC was essentially an imperial state in its own. A technical breakdown reveals a peak cap of $8 trillion. This valuation reflects total dominance over the global spice routes. It also shows a unique ability to print private money. The company was worth more than any modern tech giant. Nvidia is currently only half of that massive historical valuation. The engine produced returns that lasted for 200 years. Operating leverage was achieved through a legal breakthrough known today. Limited liability changed the nature of investing for the public. If a ship sank, investors only lost their initial stake. Personal assets remained safe from the creditors of the firm. This gave the public confidence to risk their own capital. It was a revolutionary concept that we still use today. Compounding was visible in the rapid rise of share values. From an index value of 100 shares rose tenfold. This reflected the immense profitability of the spice trade system. The Amsterdam Stock Exchange became the epicenter of global speculation. Traders created sophisticated tools like hedging and arbitrage for markets. They invented the financial instruments that Wall Street uses today. The engine was supported by a powerful state trade charter. It granted the company a 21-year trade monopoly. This was not a license, but a sovereign mandate for the company could sign treaties and capture territories for profit. It controlled nearly 150 merchant ships and soldiers. A private force of 10,000 enforced their commercial interests. Batavia became the command hub for this massive financial machine. It ruled over surrounding kingdoms for 300 long years. The wealth was constantly reinvested into new fleets and warehouses. This was the birth of the modern mega-corporation model. It was a machine designed to generate high dividends always. The absolute control of trade was the goal of everything. The Dutch found themselves squeezed between global Catholic superpowers merged. Spain and Portugal controlled vast territories across Asia and Africa. The small republic faced a threat to its very survival. The Dutch knew they could not match guns with guns, so they turned to the weapon of private capital instead. They merged 7 companies into the VOC for unified strength. This initial failure to secure land forced the merchant elite. They had to analyze their weaknesses and build a moat. A monarch power was slow, while a merchant was flexible. By merging their interests, they created a shield against Spain. However, even a giant worth trillions had its own limits. Cracks began to show in the late 18th century period. The company once ruling the seas began to sink under. Power had scaled fast, but oversight failed to keep up. Corruption slowly crept into the boardrooms and the trade posts. Officials focused more on their own pockets than the future. Internal divisions deepened and military costs rose for the board. The global markets became less tolerant of old-world monopolies. The VOC found itself surrounded and unable to adapt fast. Rivals across the seas were becoming more flexible and efficient. In 1795, the company was finally nationalized today. The mighty charter had expired, and the government took control. Although the empire collapsed, its architecture lived on in laws. Modern finance and legal structures still rely on Dutch ideas. Please share your own experiences with setbacks in the comments. Every dynasty faces its own dark night of the soul. How they adapt determines if the legacy will truly endure. The VOC failed to manage its own internal rot eventually. This is a lesson every modern entrepreneur must study carefully. Resilience is the key to surviving the cycles of history. The secret sauce that protected the VOC for 2 centuries. It was the synergy between the state and private capital. The company held a mandate to behave like a sovereign. Competitors could not replicate this because they lacked the exchange. Limited liability and the stock market were the ultimate moats. This trinity created a foundation that was virtually untouchable then. The House of Orange provided the strategic leverage needed today. They navigated a merchant republic where legacy no longer guaranteed. Another layer of protection was the secondary stock market itself. It allowed for the free transfer of ownership without permission. Capital flowed smoothly to where it was needed most regardless. Family inheritance was no longer the only way to power. The secret sauce also included the strategic use of fear. FOMO, or the fear of missing out, drove investment cycles. As the share price rose, the public became quite desperate. They wanted to join the world-first global wealth machine. This influx of capital allowed for a massive private army. The Dutch wrote the blueprint for trade war and finance. Competitors were left behind because they lacked logistical genius today. 1 million lives sailed across the oceans to serve them. The Dutch human engine was a masterclass in global scaling. They merged private interests with national goals for absolute dominance. The moat was built on a foundation of legal innovation. This protected the wealth of the elite families for generations. The Dutch financial influence did not remain confined to borders. It crossed to Britain through William of Orange in history. He brought the Dutch model of finance to the throne. England launched its own bank and created public credit systems. They introduced government bonds to fund wars through capital markets. These were Dutch innovations written into British law for power. William saw markets as tools to sustain and expand power. This revolution laid the groundwork for the British Empire later. Across the Atlantic, Dutch ships reached the New York harbor. The West India Company founded New Amsterdam as a hub. New York inherited the credit customs and legal habits today. The DNA of Manhattan is rooted in Dutch financial history. Even today, the Netherlands remains a financial empire of strength. It ranks among the most competitive industrial economies on Earth. It is a magnet for global capital and attracts business. Dutch holdings abroad exceed $3.5 trillion now. This is an astonishing footprint for a very small nation. The strategic pivots of the past still echo in boardrooms. The House of Orange remains deeply tied to Dutch industry. They maintain discrete wealth through trusts and investment vehicle systems. Their legacy is visible in companies like Shell and ING. They continue to use the corporate architecture of the VOC. Royal Dutch Shell dominates the global energy sector for centuries. A Dutch company carries both capital and a royal title. Invite your friends to subscribe to Old Money Habits 7. We analyze the hidden structures of wealth and legacy power. Join our community as we explore the forces of history. Succession of the House of Orange is a survival masterclass. They transformed their role into a ceremonial yet powerful reign. Their influence remains in the boardrooms of the global elite. The legacy is maintained through a corporate constitution of sorts. It prioritizes discrete wealth and strategic stakes in powerful firms. The family name carries weight in every single modern continent. Succession is about sitting quietly on boards and shaping policy. Surnames of merchants and royals are found in capital networks. They engineered a system where the crown became quite invisible. Long-term survival depends on a model of unified finance. The House of Orange built the blueprint, others followed later. They created a world where markets surpass the individual monarch. However, we must consider the moral cost of this success. The VOC committed atrocities to maintain its spice trade control. Massacres in the Banda Islands were the dark side wealth. Indigenous populations suffered under systems of forced labor and pain. The human engine of the machine often faced great exploitation. Please comment below on meritocracy versus family inheritance in business. Is it better for a family to lead or markets? The Dutch model suggests a family can do both together. They merge their own interests with the flow of capital. The architectural synthesis teaches us about the systems of money. True power is found in the governance of the market. The crown may be ceremonial, but the capital is sovereign. Old money lessons show you must build institutional scale today. Expert recommendations include the necessity of institutionalizing your wealth early. Protect your personal assets from the risks of business life. Ensure your legacy is tied to the architecture of markets. Remember that a brand can be a mandate for power. The corporate seal is the new flag of the world. You must decide if you are building a kingdom now, or a machine that will generate dividends for your heirs. The VOC blueprint still governs the modern financial world today. This analysis is for educational and reference purposes only from a historical perspective and does not constitute any financial advice. The story of the VOC is a blueprint for power. We should improve our lives by understanding these hidden structures. The habits of the elite are written in their history. Thank you for joining us on this deep strategic dive. The Netherlands may no longer rule the seas with fleets, but their capital moves across borders with more influence today. Thank you for being part of Old Money Habits 7. We will see you in the next episode for more. Strive for excellence in your own financial and professional life. We work together to improve our lives every single day. The blueprint of capitalism was written in the Dutch harbors. We share these stories so you can navigate the world. May your financial engine be fueled by discipline and knowledge. The market is the crown when the king is invisible. Success is the ability to scale your vision across generations. Thank you for watching and supporting our strategic mission here. Legacy is the final dividend of a life well managed. The Dutch East India Company left a map for us. We must study the past to own the future today. Your support helps us reach 100,000 subscribers soon. Until the next documentary, stay focused on your own empire. Build with integrity and watch your capital grow and grow.